Welcome to the webinar, How Smart Integrations Make Owners Happier and Portfolios Healthier. Brought to you by the Storage Group. We have over 15 years of experience of working with self-storage facilities to maximize their online presence. We offer progressive websites, targeted digital advertising, and online rental software, helping facilities like yours gain visibility, convert more renters, and generate revenue. Enjoy the webinar.
Hello, everyone. Welcome in. I am Jessica Johnson. I am the Director of Marketing at the Storage Group, and this is our second episode of our new educational webinar series called the MEGAbyte. So again, thank you for everyone joining us today. Just a couple quick housekeeping items before I bring up our speakers and introduce them to you. If you have questions while we talk today about this really great topic, please enter those into the comment section. We'll be happy to answer those for you live as we go. We will also have time towards the end of the webinar where we can go over any additional questions, but don't be shy. Please feel free to ask those questions live here with us today. So I'm going to get us started, and I'm going to bring up our first speaker. I have Andre from Quick Store with us today. Good morning, or good afternoon, Andre. It's 2 o'clock. Why am I saying good morning? Good afternoon.
How you doing, Jessica? Thanks for having me today. I'm Andre Hatzipavlovich. I'm the Chief Innovation Officer at Quick Store. Quick Store is a modern SaaS operating platform for the self-storage industry built by operators for operators. We deliver a fast, reliable, and purpose-built FMS designed to power intelligent automation and streamline operations, and we're backed by trusted self-storage industry veterans.
Awesome. And over at our side on the Storage Group, Quick Store is one of our property management software integrations that we have. So if you work with Quick Store and you need a different website, you can absolutely reach out to us over here at the Storage Group because we do have an integration. So thanks for being here with us today, Andre. I appreciate it.
Of course.
Next up, I have Ephraim from Storage Defender. Good afternoon, not morning, Ephraim.
Good afternoon, everybody. How's everybody doing today? I hope everybody's doing good. Jessica, thanks for having me on. My name is Ephraim. I work with Storage Defender. Storage Defender is the leader and pioneer of smart unit technology in the industry. We're helping a lot of operators around the nation add more revenue streams with smart units, and super excited to have this conversation around integrations, all things tech, and some good panelists here. So super excited.
Yeah, another one of our integration partners too. And I want to just give this quick shout out. In recent SSA demand studies, added layers of security is something that tenants are willing to pay for. So listen to your tenants and get the money, and that's call right. Ephraim and his team and get
the money. Come on.
Well, thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And last but certainly not least, I have Warren from Veritech. Good morning, or I keep saying good morning. It's afternoon. Warren, how are you?
In my case, it actually is morning. And so do not worry about that. It's like 11 o'clock here because we're in California. So
maybe I'm meant to be a West Coast girl, not an East Coast girl.
I say good morning. Good morning for everybody. And it may not work for everybody except if you're in Hawaii, but that's okay. Right. Anyway, Jessica, thank you very much. Thanks to the Storage Group for hosting this. I'm Warren Lieberman, President of Veritech Solutions. Veritech is what I'd like to believe is the leading company in providing revenue management and pricing guidance to the self-storage industry. I've been in this area of revenue management since the 1980s with American Airlines, which is where I got my start. And so we're doing a lot of exciting things. And as you well know, integration is incredibly key because depending on what website you're using, you get to take advantage of certain features in our system or not. And that just demonstrates how important the various integrations between companies can be, not just with the PMS, but again, like our company and yours. So thrilled to be here. And I'd like to say I'm all things revenue management and pricing.
Awesome. And again, yet another one of our integration partners here. Very critical piece. Revenue management is definitely something that should be monitored and looked at in your portfolios and your facilities. And Warren and his team do a great job with this, and I know would be happy to help everyone. So I'm going to bring everyone back up to stage real quick, and we're going to kick this thing off. So today's topic is how smart integrations make owners happier and portfolios healthier, right? And, you know, I talk to many self-storage owners and operators. I am one myself. I've seen a lot of systems out there, lots of broken systems, lots of siloed systems. And our industry traditionally was behind in technology, right? But those are the days of the past. There's a lot of technology now in self-storage. And today's, you know, theme essentially is we want all of these different systems to be harmonious together and talk to one another and work properly together. So Ephraim, I'm going to jump over to you. I can this whole question over to you. And I know Warren has some stuff he wants to add to it, but if you could think of, as an owner operator, what are those 3 biggest frustrations that they have that integrations can solve the quickest for them?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I think it's a really good place to start as a whole. I mean, given the speakers that we have here, I think 3, there's a lot of them, but if I can condense them down to 3, the one that comes to mind right now, and it kind of aligns with the website, right? And making sure you have the website right is number 1 frustration is misled leads, right? Making sure that you're able to capture all the leads, because self-storage is competitive now, and one phone call not answered or one person scrolling through the website and not converted, they're going somewhere else, right? So misled leads is super important, making sure that you have your systems integrated so you have as little friction as possible when it comes to your checkout process. The other one that comes to mind is, as everybody talks about remote management or managed facilities, our managers' time, we're learning more and more that our managers as operators, our managers' times are very valuable, right? They have to do a lot of things, right? So integrations kind of help everything come together to make sure that the manager job is a lot simpler and a little bit more seamless. That way they don't have to be doing a lot of manual work. And the last one that comes to mind for that one is security, making sure that your security is integrated with your property or any ancillary services that you have, that they're integrated with your websites, right? That they're integrated with your property management software. That way your systems are working super aligned and super smooth. So those are the 3 that come to mind. I'd love to hear what Warren has to think about this subject.
Thank you very much, Ephraim. So delighted to do this. I'm going to address this from the pricing perspective, because that's what we do. But I suspect that the concerns I bring up kind of translate to a lot of different areas. So the first one that I would kind of say is, with respect to pricing, companies need to know that they are actively doing the right thing. So they need guidance, they need an ability to implement it, and they need an ability for our situation where, when they have multiple stores, there's an efficient way to update their prices and promotions and get them right. And all PMSs will typically have some free type of capability, but they're not all that sophisticated because they don't focus on it all this time. The way I say it is, a PMS has to do 1,000 things good. We do one thing. We need to do it great, but we only do one thing, just like, Storage Defender. So that's why the integrations are so important, and we need to work with PMSs that want to work with us, because they can change their system architecture to take more advantage of capabilities that we can offer and other companies that they integrate with. One of the other things that are particularly important in the pricing area is operators want to make sure that they can take advantage not just of automation when it's helpful, but their own human knowledge, because that will always supplement what automation can do, what machine learning can do, even what AI can do. You want to have a capability where, I like to say, you want to be able to take advantage of the human expertise that understands self-storage, but you don't necessarily want to be driven by human bias. And that's where the human and automation and machine system capability really dovetail. The final thing that I would say, and this again it's in the news now, and we may want to talk about this later in the session, legal issues. There's a lot of misconceptions, especially about pricing and revenue management, of what it is. And I even saw a recent article this week talking about why companies should not be investing in revenue management techniques. And I would like to say that there are different ways of implementing revenue management and pricing guidance. There are good ways and there are not so good ways. Some of this stuff is in the news right now in big time fashion. And that's something that you really want to be on the right side of how to do this well. And that's the other concern of the operators on the integration, is knowing that their partners, their integration companies, are doing things that work well for them, even with all of the legal restrictions.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Warren, right? Because I mean, for our industry, for profitability and gains in revenue, ECRIs are important, right? But within reason. I think they have to be reasonable. And there's been some suspects that have not been very reasonable in their approach. So that's where we are today as an industry. And I think that this is just the tip of the iceberg on that particular topic. Andre, did you have anything you wanted to add in as far as like those owner frustrations, or do you think we got them all?
Just to add one, your question was really what were the frustrations that integration solved the fastest?
Right.
In many cases, it's the integration itself. It's the openness to the integration, right? Folks like Warren and Ephraim, certainly working together with other partners in the industry, because definitely agree with Warren. There is a concept of, jack of all trades, master of none, and ensuring that you're open to those integrations where, if you want to be the best FMS, great, be the best FMS, but you're not going to be everything to everybody. People certainly have different needs. So having the openness to really partner with these the colleagues today and other folks in the industry that really offer a best of breed solution, I think is really key. And when there's not that openness, that is a massive source for frustration as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I love this next question, and I'm going to start with Ephraim again. And I talk about this a lot, and obviously we're a website company, so we try to solve this for owners and operators, is that user experience and making it frictionless, right? From end to end. For you as a consumer, for consumers out there, what does that look like for you?
Yeah, no, I think just like the word. So the way I always like starting this question is basically, I always ask operators, whoever I talk to on a day to day, I've always asked them, have you ever walked through and done a rental on your own website before? And most of the time, you want to know what the answer is? The answer is typically no, I've never done it, right? And the moment they start doing it, they realize, okay, there's a latency on my website here, or hey, this is maybe slow here, whatever the case may be. So I think number one is making sure that your rental checkout flow is spot on. I don't know, Jessica, you might know this, the stat on, I think it's 60% of renters are renting online now. I can't remember. It's around there, right? It's majority of renters are renting online, especially looking at my generation, Gen Z. A lot of us, this is where we check out, right? This is where we do all of our stuff. So making sure that it's also mobile interfacing is super important, right? I also see it like the move-in process. I'm sure Andre will have something to say here on the move-in process as well. Making sure that once they get on site, if it is a remote facility, they are able to get on site, right? Making sure that if it's a managed facility, that manager is, hey, super nice, walk them out to the unit. It's a super easy experience, right? Because we've all heard the horror stories of somebody getting to a facility and they can't get into their unit, or they can't do this, they can't get the gate's broken, or hey, the gate's open. Why is it always open? Hey, it's broken, that alone flags some warning signs for tenants. And on top of that is just making sure that you guys as operators value the customer experience, right? I'm talking about it also from a security and peace of mind perspective, is making sure that your frictionless experience doesn't end as soon as they leave the facility for the first time, and they are able to stay connected to their stuff all the time, and that's what Storage Defender, that's what we pride ourselves on. It's not just a one-time tenant experience. It's, hey, you're staying here for a year. We want to make sure you're always protected, right? So I'd say it's all about how easy it is, how simple it is. Self-storage, you got to keep it as simple as possible, right?
Yeah, absolutely, right. I'm a marketer in this space. It's not a very easy product to market. It's not. It's a box of air, right? I always make the joke of like, this is not a new pair of Nikes where like I'm going to evoke emotion in a consumer like, oh my God, I really need that new pair of Nikes. No one feels that way about a 10 by 10 box of air. They just don't. They either need it or they don't. You have to show up first. You have to show up fast, and you have to highlight your amenities and shout them from the mountaintops to make you stand out from your competitors. Andre, anything you wanted to add from like that checkout process that Ephraim was talking about?
Andre, you're muted.
Yep. Sorry, couldn't see that.
Thank you, Warren. I have a little bit of a cold and didn't want to cough into the mic, so I appreciate the heads up there. Just pivoting slightly from what Ephraim mentioned in terms of the overall online experience. I mean, let's focus on websites. I'm going to focus from an owner's perspective. I mean, how are we removing friction in the owner's experience as well, specifically as it comes to integrations? Jessica, you're a marketer and you work for a website company that serves the self-storage industry. From that perspective, how are you truly able to measure? I mean, we're in a much more modern era of measurability of, what your marketing spend, how that translates to website, to clicks, click-throughs, eventually to reservations, eventually to the move-in. Removing the friction from that process to ensure that the data is there so that you can track, because you might be touching the FMS, you might be touching, Storage Defender, you might be touching Veritech, all these other aspects of the system. You need to basically have this unity of data so that you can really prove to the customers that, yes, we are pulling this in but pushing it all the way through. So removing that I have to dig to 15 different systems to put together some analysis to really identify, is this moving the needle the way that I want it? Does the price increase? What actually occurred from a move out perspective after? I mean, is the integration supporting that level of analysis? And to me, I think from an owner's perspective, that certainly kind of reduces that friction in terms of the overall experience they have with their tech stack.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, right? And tech stack, I think, is situational, property to property, right? From where the owner feels comfortable and what they can use on the back end, right? Sometimes they get caught up and they get sold the Ferrari when all they really needed maybe was the Civic, and like they have hundreds of reports that they're never going to look at in their entire lifetime in some of these tech stacks. But also the tech stack translates over to the consumer as well. And we look at generational data. If I'm in a heavy boomer market, my tech stack's probably not very large, right? It just isn't. My mom is almost 70. The day I get her to use online banking, like I will have conquered something in life, because she thinks she's going to get hacked, right? So she's of the time of where she wants to call. She wants the personal interaction. She does not trust online interactions very much. So again, I think it plays on both sides for sure. Warren, anything you wanted to add to this topic?
Thank you. I do. I will add one thing, just following on Andrew's example from the last question. When an operator works with a third party like us, who's integrated with the PMS, when anything goes wrong, they don't care whether it's because of our software or the property management software. What they want and what they expect is that we and the property management company, so Andre's team and my team, Ephraim's team and Andre's team, that we are working together as closely and quickly as possible to address any issues that come up, to solve things, to address problems. And so that, beyond just the state of the software, between how advanced it is, which is kind of like a given, it has to be good, they need companies that they can trust to work well together. And that's why kind of Andre and I are in a lot of, shall we call it, cooperative discussions about how do we make sure our integration is as successful as possible so that it's easy for the owner and we don't run into problems. But when there is an issue, we address it quickly and there's no finger pointing. And that's really, ultimately, we can provide lots of extra capabilities, but both of our companies have to work well together to modify our own tech stacks to address that. And that is extraordinarily important, especially because we're dealing in an area of revenue generation and increased profitability.
Yeah, and that's a good segue, your last statement there of increased profitability. So talk to me, and whoever wants to go first can on this one, about how integrations can reduce, vacancies, delinquencies, look at, operational costs, marketing costs. Talk to me about some of that.
I'm happy to start if that's okay.
Yeah.
So let me give you just one incredibly easy example, and it has taken the industry by storm. It's what's often been known as good, better, best pricing or value pricing. We introduced this to the industry in about 2012, 2013. StorageMart was the first company to take advantage of it. Okay. And by 2015, StorageMart was beginning to tell other operators how valuable it was, because it was what we did. And we actually have a patent on the methodology we did. So we did something totally new. The technology goes beyond what the airlines do, for example. But what we did was we actually introduced two prices that are higher than what the operator would otherwise have charged. And we kind of said, following on your comment, Jessica, that the operators, the self-storage operators, were not just renting spaces of air, but they were spaces of air that people perceive differently based on convenience, based on amenities, whether it has a smart lock or not, and power, whatever it is. There's a lot, door size, and we developed a system that could actually monetize elements, whether it's convenience, product usage, policies, that the operators had not been able to monetize before. And so this is an example of now it requires correct display on the website to take full advantage of this. So I've kind of lost track of what the question was, and I apologize.
No, and I'm glad you brought that up. And I have a couple questions for you as it's related to the good, better, best pricing. And you should be using this methodology, right? Like, I'll use an example of me. I'm a female, I'm 5'1". I don't like going into a multi-story facility and my unit being in the back left corner, right? I'm a sissy, I'm a scaredy cat. So I'll pay more to be up by the front door and feel more secure, right? And other people probably feel that way. Warren, do you have any quick data, maybe it's not just data, but maybe commentary on, do people tend to go to that middle layer, that top tier layer? Like, what do you see as far as like the consumer wants?
Yeah, there are a variety of ways that this program can be implemented. And part of it is, this is where you have to be very careful, because the terminology value pricing, good, better, best, has been morphed into a variety of different ways. Some companies now talk about good, better, best as climate control versus not climate control, which is a whole different static implementation, if you will, of this, and something the industry has done for a long time. Mm-hmm. But to your question, Jessica, when we find that essentially the same type of unit can be made available at three prices, okay, about 35% of customers will choose to have a more convenient unit rather than paying the lowest price. Of those people, about 80% will choose the middle price rather than the top price, because they don't necessarily need all of the convenience. But businesses, 80% of the businesses will choose to pay for the best, because you know what? The person who's accessing the unit is not the person who's paying for it, and they want to get their materials as easy as possible. Mm-hmm. So even in drive-up facilities, we see upgrade rates. And the easiest mental exercise I could say is, if you had a drive-up facility and all your units were vacant, and you told somebody, I'm going to give you your unit, but if you give me an extra penny, I'll let you choose which unit you want, everybody would choose it. And the real question is, how many extra pennies? Is it 100? Is it 200? So you're managing the upgrade rate with the upgrade amount. And that's why it is generating so much extra revenue and profit for the company, because this all comes for things they could not before could easily monetize.
Absolutely. Andre, anything you want to talk about related to this particular question?
I really think Warren hit it on the head here. Not too much to add here. Obviously these integrations across the board really kind of help do all this and more. So not much to add.
Yeah. How about you, Ephraim?
No, I think it pretty much aligns with Warren. Yeah, like you said, Andre, Warren pretty much hit it on the nail. But yeah, I think when it comes to like value-based pricing too, it's all about like value is in the eye of the beholder. Like it's in the eye of the tenant. Most of the time. And that's why we're working with some that are doing value-based pricing as well, because then differentiating like Warren said, like a drive-up facility, being able to choose, but also we got to be careful that if you're in a drive-up facility and you're going from here to here, is there really that much value, right? So that's where a lot of people, like Warren said, is, hey, they're willing to pay more for those that have the extra technology. Smart units, for example, the smart locks is another one there as well. And just 24/7 access is another one. Hey, I'm going to throw in best for 24/7 access. But yeah, I think making sure that it's all talking and all communicating, it ultimately will make also people stay longer as well, not just getting people in, but you'll retain tenants. So it'll reduce the people moving out as well.
Yep. And if I could just add on to Ephraim's comment, because what he said is so important, okay? There are places where the property management system needs to be able to support the extra functionality that folks like Ephraim and I can bring to the table. Again, it talks about why we have to be working so close together behind the scenes, because otherwise you may have a great idea, but it can't get implemented on the limitations of any one of the elements of the companies that are involved. And that's why we have to work closely together.
Absolutely. So a lot of these systems, in fact, all of these systems, when used properly and people understand how to read data and the analytics on the back end, can really help take the guesswork out, right? And they can make quicker decisions. They can make more accurate decisions. So there's a lot of business intellect that these systems have. Let's talk about that for a moment. Andre, I'll start with you. And just make sure you unmute. Make sure you unmute.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, when we're just kind of taking it a level higher, Jessica, when we're really looking at the integration, kind of going back to my comments on, best of breed for the specific use, for the specific owner, right? If you're increasing, your ability to better manage your facility, it doesn't necessarily mean everything across the board overall, regardless of location of the facility. As Efren mentioned earlier, he's a Gen Zer. I don't want to date myself, but I'm a Gen Xer, right? We might have different views of, use of technology and different things. My mother's 76 years old and she does log into online banking, but getting her to e-sign a document, her mind explodes, right? So ensuring that you have the appropriate tech stack to basically, align with what your market is and ensure that you are in a situation to basically support that specific operation across whether it's a couple facilities or 100 plus facilities. So, I really view this overall integration discussion as, it's putting together the right parts and ensuring that the whole is truly greater than the sum of the parts. Does every facility need what Storage Defender is offering? Not necessary. Does everybody need the ability of quick stores and FMS? Not necessary. There are solutions that might be able to piecemeal these things to drive that overall value for those owners, a little bit more holistically, when you can get not necessarily best of breed in every situation. You mentioned the Ferrari. You might need a Ferrari in this area, but you need a Pinto in this area, and you need a bicycle in a third area that really kind of drives that overall value. So hope I hit on the point you intended there.
Yeah, and again, I mean, it's property specific too, right? Some of these, sub 10,000 net rentable might not be able to afford like these levels of tech stacks, right? So there's a lot of factors that go into making these decisions for your facility and your portfolio. Warren, how about you? I know you had some stuff you wanted to add on this topic.
Yep. Before I do that, I have to just make a comment because I just think it's so funny. In 10.5 years, if I continue to play ice hockey, and I'm right now playing in 3 leagues, I'll be eligible to be nominated into the Ice Hockey Hall of Fame for people who are still playing when they're 80 or above. So for Ephraim and Andre as Gen Z folks, yeah, I'm the next generation. I'm a little bit younger than their parents, but not that much younger.
Well, I'm a geriatric millennial. Like, how offensive is that, right? Like, come on, y'all.
So the best comment I ever get in the locker room is when I tell people I'm 69 and they say, "What? I hope I'm playing hockey in 20 years when I get your age." So, all right, back to business intellect. So, especially in a world right now where artificial intelligence has become so much of a buzzword, people are asking about that. You see it with ChatGPT and all sorts of other stuff. There's a lot of misconceptions about that. The reality is some of what we're doing already in the self-storage industry from a tech stack is more advanced than any other industry, including the airlines, because the technical requirements are not as great. In the airline industry, you have to really be dealing with real-time data feeds, and there's all sorts of stuff where if you change prices once a day in the industry, that's more than sufficient typically. So again, exceptions to that, but part of what has to happen is developing software where every company can choose how much automation they want, how much manual intervention they want, how much analysis they want, how much they allow the system to do for them. So you need to be able to adapt the software to the different ways of the company wanting to operate, rather than them force them into using your technology the way it's designed. So for rent increases, for the moment, as an example, there are some companies that, as a philosophy, they don't want to raise anybody's rates above street rate. There's all sorts of good reasons for that. They willingly give up revenue, but that's a philosophy they want. They need a system that supports that. For companies that are willing and able to and want and to focus on revenue generation by raising customer rates above street rate, that's okay. But the software needs to support that. How far do you go? Monitor the churn of people so they understand and can measure after they do something with rent increases, what happens, and then learn from that to improve their levels. So all of this is about creating technology that works hand in hand with the different philosophies and the operating practices of the companies. And that's why, you want to have software that is able to be used in the way that you want to use it, not to have to change your ways of using your business to fit the way that the technology wants.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyone have anything to add on that before I move on? Awesome. And just another reminder to the audience, if you have questions while we're here live, we have about another 25 minutes or so to go. So please ask those questions. Warren, I'm going to bring this one back to you. Everybody's always curious about, return on investment, right? With these integrations, what does that return on investment look like for them, and how does that work?
Yeah. So again, I know that I've spoken to Mark Sierra at Storage Defender, and Ephraim, I'm sure, is going to have a lot to say on this as well. But we're in the enviable position that for many of the things that we do, we actually can easily develop an understanding of how much incremental revenue we're driving. I'll let Ephraim talk about Storage Defender, but if I go back to value pricing, because we introduce prices that would not otherwise have existed, and they're higher, we can easily monitor the upgrade rate. We can monitor what people are paying above the rate that would have been available. And then we can kind of track that over time, and it's very easy to comprehend. Rent increases, we can see what the average rent increase is and the churn before they start using our system. And then we can monitor it, track it, see what the difference is after. And again, rent increases, you can begin now to see a very easily understood, comprehended financial impact of that. Begin to combine that, and we see within a few months of using our system, you're typically already revenue ROI positive even after paying the initial sign-up fees, and then it just gets better and better after that. The one place where ROI is really hard to measure is from a starting rate perspective. We can do it, but it's much more involved, because then you have to answer questions like, to what extent is it advertising? Is it marketing? Is it the business cycle? Not saying that those things can't be addressed, but it's much more difficult than the rent increase and the value pricing. And typically we're able to do that in a way that it's so sufficiently profitable that now it begins to, you begin to see that the other stuff is an add-on, and you don't need to worry about it quite as much. But I'll let Ephraim speak, I think, about on the Storage Defender side.
Yeah, no, I think, so we look at, so in terms of, so how do you quantify the ROI integration work here? What we do is we look at necessarily, like, as you guys probably aware, like, if we could integrate with everybody, we could. If you guys could integrate with everybody, you could, right? But we also understand that integrations, it's also return on investment money, but then think about the return on invested time. You know, where are we focusing our time as a company? Is there a business case for an integration as well, in terms of like, if we have a handful of properties on Easy Storage Solutions, we're probably not going to focus there versus SiteLink or QuickStore if we have more and more QuickStore operators, you know? So that's kind of how we quantify it as well. And making sure we're able to track trends in the industry in terms of which companies are growing, which companies are actively out there and changing up their marketing and stuff like that. So that's how we quantify it a little bit, is just making sure that we always have a business case for integration work. To then on the other side of that, make our operators money, and also on the flip side of that, make us money and make it as easy as possible for PMSs. Like, a lot of our integrations are PMSs and other gate systems as well. So that's kind of what we're seeing.
And Jessica, if I could just jump in there as well. Really interesting, great discussion. You know, Warren, you know, kind of mentioned from an ROI perspective to the owner, the operator, you know, in implementing these systems. And certainly every single solution has an ROI that you're going to be able to put together. I mean, it's very easy and very quantifiable, much more easily than a lot of other systems when it comes to revenue management, for example. You know, Ephraim kind of went down the road of, you know, how do you quantify the ROI of integration work, you know, from the software provider or the solution provider perspective, where obviously you want to play nice with everybody, integrate with everybody to kind of, you know, expand your potential addressable market, you know, and work well with other partners. I think what's interesting, taking kind of, you know, Warren's approach and looking at it even more deeply, the integration cost isn't borne typically by the owner operator, right? It's borne by us, the providers. We work well together, we integrate, and certainly each component, you buy Veritech and use Veritech because you see a quantifiable ROI increase in your overall top line and net operating income because of that solution. But as you start to get into these integrated tech stacks, you really can kind of take it truly a level deeper, right? If you're looking at an integrated website with revenue management that's pushing those street rates, just use that as an example for the good, better, best, you're able to quantify that move up, but you're also able to A/B test. What if I do add an add-on for a Storage Defender? If I do this, where you can see across all these integrations, what is the optimal mix to maximize revenue, not only just from the street rate perspective, but from the add-ons, from your marketing spend, driving into that funnel, A/B testing, and getting to a point where you really optimize the entire offering that you have to maximize overall revenue and NOI. And through these integrations, I think for the owner, that's going to be the biggest benefit, right? You have a multiplier across everything. You know, what Veritech's giving you, what QuickStore's giving you, what the website, what any add-on product is giving you, you really kind of could get a 1.1 or 1.2x lift across the board if you're implementing things appropriately.
Yeah, absolutely. I see some going back and forth here in the comment section, so I want to address some of the things that are going on here. Kimberly asked this: is there a place for a human in the middle for customers who prefer or require this, like my mother? It could require solutioning for a given customer. I'll start with this. I mean, I know there's several solutions out there, or several mechanisms you could do for this. There's virtual assistants that you could do through like a kiosk. Whereas like if they're on property and they're having an issue, a virtual assistant could pop up, whether it be through a kiosk. There's providers out there that do that. The website offers that sometimes too, through a chat bot, or again, a virtual assistant can pop up if they're seeing that there's like barriers on the website where the consumer is having questions. Anybody seeing anything else where like that human can kind of come? I mean, we even have a new product right now called Aiden Chat. It's our chat bot, and we have Aiden Phone Agent. It will get them through all of those certain questions. And then when kind of like the technology, so to say, taps out or doesn't have the answer, it has a very seamless introduction over to the human if it's during like operating hours, right? So there's a lot of solutions out there. Those are just a few that I can think of that kind of put that human back in the middle, especially for people that are trying to go more remote or unmanned facilities. Any other ones you guys are seeing out there that you could mention?
And I could chime in on that also, that human in the middle when it comes to, telephony, right? With the proliferation of AI and voice, chatbots, every one of these can certainly assess sentiment immediately. And if they sense frustration, immediately push through to a person, where if it's Ephraim, who's very comfortable with this technology, he calls in, he kind of talks through the voice IVR to accomplish what he's looking for. He just wanted his gate code. I think you see it, and you will see it much more there, where this consumer sentiment is coming through and assessed by a lot of this new, artificial intelligence tooling. So we could say it is somebody who wants to speak to a person within the first 5 seconds versus somebody who's willing to give it a go on their own.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing is, like, I mean, we all talk, the AI stuff is quick, it's moving fast, and it's honestly maybe a little bit scary too. But like, I think that storage ultimately will need that human touch. Like, have you guys ever been on a phone and it's just it's a computer, and you're like, man, just let me talk to a person. Let me talk to a person. It just keeps on being like, all right, let me redirect you to another AI agent. It's like the worst thing in the world. So making sure that if we have those systems, they can, like you said, Andre, they're able to like see the frustration and pass them on to the person. Like, even my generation, you'd be surprised how many of us, like Gen Z and these younger generations, we still very much value the human aspect of customer service, right? We like to talk to people, whether it's on a screen or whether it's on the phone, right? And that's why a lot of people are going to this remote operator feel. Is I always say, if you're going to go remote, number one, you better have technologies in place to back it up, because you don't have a person there. Make sure your systems are integrating together, your website's integrating. It's super simple. And also, when somebody calls a facility, that a person picks up, right? And not an animated computer. So that's what I see in the middle. It's making sure we don't lose completely the human aspect of, we're all tech companies, the human aspect of storage.
Yeah, and I would recommend too, like multi-channel, right? And testing the multi-channels to see where the activity is coming in. Is it coming from a chat bot? Is it coming from a phone call? Is it coming from they're showing up in person? So you have to meet your consumer base where they're at. And a lot of these technologies will help you do that. Andre, I'm going to get back to this. Our standard questions. I think we've hit everything. There's a lot of good chat going on there. So please check out the chat. In my lifetime in self-storage, God, I've visited thousands of facilities. I really have. And I'm still blown away when I walk in one and there's a board where they're tracking their tenants on a board, or a binder, or a filing system. And it just, like, now, like, especially because I'm in a tech company, it blows my mind. But this question is, in 2026, right, we have to treat this like a business. The manual process has to be very minimal, because manual process is time consuming, right? Like, labor and insurance are two of our biggest expenditures as owner operators, right? So if we can reduce labor, that's a great thing. So what should not be manual anymore in 2026, according to you? And I'll ask you guys as well, Warren.
So, Jessica, great question. As a technologist, my initial answer is nothing should be manual. There should be some degree of automation, throughout everything. Right. And obviously, with the changes that we've seen so rapid, especially with artificial intelligence, it's becoming, less and less reliance on truly manual processes. Overall, my rule of thumb is if it's repetitive or rules-based, and especially if it's cross-system, if it's an integration, if you're doing things manually when it comes to making two systems communicate each other, it's just something that shouldn't be manual. There's certainly ways to automate all of this and really kind of, take the human, not just the time and the cost of it, but also, the potential for human error, right? I mean, if these things are automated, there's much less room for error. I'll pick a few things. Telephone payments, right? Telephone payments can be completely unmanned. A lot of every storage operator wants 99% of their tenants on auto pay, right? 100% of their tenants on auto pay, but it typically isn't the reality. And so they've used different testing mechanisms of charging a fee for a phone payment, whatever the case is. Some of the call centers that we've worked with and some of our customers through their call centers, they had literally 60% of their call volume the first week of the month is people just making a payment. This is very easily automated in a truly PCI compliant, credit card compliant method for them to simply make a payment if they don't want to leverage auto pay because they're afraid they might get overdrafted. Manual competitive pricing checks, right? The information's out there. There's a lot of data providers, a lot of scrapers that pull this data. You can easily hook to these sources to basically pull the information in. Companies like Veritech certainly provide that as a simple hook where they give you the analysis and the pricing decision is made upon that analysis. Manual rate increases across the sites, right? Obviously this needs to be automated, especially as you get to larger portfolios. It's certainly something that needs to be executed instantaneously with 100% automation. When I first came into the storage industry, I was a little bit shocked about the delinquency process, right? Some manual delinquency notices, newspaper ads being placed manually, auction website postings. So if you have a potentially rules-based repetitive process and all of a sudden one or two components of it have human interaction, what's the problem? Well, it kind of breaks the automation. Today, you absolutely can have 100% automation across your entire process, everything from certified mailings to your emails, your notices, your newspaper ad postings, getting those affidavit backs, getting the auction up, ensuring everything's in line, where you're pulling that human out of the process to potentially make a mistake where, oops, we sold the unit, and now we're subject to $2,500 or $5,000 of liability because we auctioned it off or didn't follow the lien laws for the specific state. Last one I'll bring up is just the concept of centralization. Warren mentioned some fun pricing stuff that happened in New York recently, and also we saw this in California SB 709. That initially was supposed to be a degree of a restriction, but the SSA and the CSSA did a great job basically making it into the form of California SB 709, where there's specific criteria that have to actually appear on the lease. What was the promotion? When did it expire? The length of the promotion? What is the street rate? If there is a discount, it needs to be clear. What is the maximum rate that person could be charged over a 12-month period to avoid those price restrictions? Now, obviously, a lot of software vendors like Quickstore, we certainly filled this hole. But when you're dealing with some legacy or data technology, you're in a position where, well, great, I have 150 facilities. Now I need to go and make this change 150 times in 150 instances of the system. With modern technology, this really needs to be kind of centralized, automated activity for things like notices, like lease templates, these other documents that need to constantly be updated because there is regulation in a single state or even a single city in some cases. In California, I know there's cities that have passed some regulation that is a little bit greater than the overall California regulation. So ensuring that certainly gets you to a point where you're driving that automation. It allows for that scalability to have the large 100, 150, 200 plus site operators. There's no burnout on your people. Errors certainly aren't compounded because you're automating much more of it. And if you have a lot of manual tasks in 2026, it's usually a signal that there's a dated component in your tech stack, or the systems you're using in your tech stack aren't truly integrated to the degree that they really need to be.
Yeah, you hit a lot there. And I mean, that was very eloquently put, and I couldn't agree more. And I'm going to ask this other question to you real quick before I move on. When you have all these different systems and you're looking at multiple systems, what is that one source of truth for you?
Okay. I don't want to get too technical here, so I'm gonna try and put this in as much layman's terms as possible because I know the audience might be across the board. So when you're talking the one version of truth, it's really every system in your tech stack agrees, is in agreement on which system has the authority or is the system of record for specific data. So let's kind of dive in, system of record for specific segments of data. And, I'll use an example with revenue management. FMS or PMS typically owns the tenant, the lease data, the revenue accounting data, because it's the one that's actually generating the invoices, charging with a credit card processor, pulling that out. The revenue management system typically will own the logic around street rate and in-place rate. Now, where it potentially gets somewhat confusing is where there's overlap in that. So taking it one level deeper, revenue management, they issue a rate increase. For example, Veritech sends a rate increase for the person unit 101, and the FMS is performing the noticing and the implementation of that rate increase. It has to make its way into the ledger and the execution of it. So the FMS technically is the system of record for the actual increase, the actual rate that was derived by the revenue management system's logic and pushed over. And that information needs to be freely pushed back over to Veritech in this case to ensure that we're in line, because the data has to be across both systems in order for Veritech to do its magic for the pricing increase logic. Now, that really is just ownership rules. Who is reading? One party, or sorry, who's writing data? One party or both parties? And if it's both, who is the system of record? Who's reading the data? Who can override? The system of records typically overriding the other system to make sure that they're all in alignment. Now, the real important thing here is real-time data or near real-time data is absolutely mandatory these days, because if you're dealing with old methods of integration, old SOAP-based API access, or polling is where you hit an API and you hit it every 5 minutes or every hour, but then they don't like you hitting it that much. Now they make you hit it every single day. Imagine an auction site, for example. Modern APIs should have what's called webhooks or some way to immediately notify that, hey, this has changed. And I'll use an auction site example. If we push something to an auction site that this is ready for auction, somebody pays, it needs to be pulled off the auction immediately. This can't wait till the 12 o'clock ping from the auction site to the FMS. The FMS needs to notify the auction provider to say, immediately pull this off because it's no longer delinquent. And you eliminate those issues where, oops, we accidentally sold a unit. On the auction site, the person came in, we gave it to them, but we just realized the person paid 3 days ago. We're in a technology or a state of technology where that should not be even a possibility from an integration perspective. So ensuring that you have kind of that more modern real-time data, I think is really paramount. And I think all the folks, in this panel definitely would agree with me from that perspective.
Yeah, I certainly would. I think, Andre, you hit on a lot of really important points. I actually, on the automation side, what I would supplement to what Andre said is we believe that somebody in the company has to be held accountable. And so whatever the level of automation and manual decision-making is, somebody should be deciding on that in the company so that if some senior management has a question about something, there is somebody who can say, this happened because A, B, and C. They never should be saying, oh, the system recommended that. They have to kind of say, that's where I gave control to the system because I believe that their recommendations were sufficiently correct, or this is where we're doing it manually or with guidance because this is, where we are less convinced that the system is doing everything by itself, and we want to be paying attention. Rent increases are a great example of something that we provide a lot of guidance for and certain types of automation, but because we're identifying who should get a big rent increase and who should not, we want somebody in that company to push 2 buttons to accept it. So how much they review it, up to them, but we're going to make it easy for them to make sure that they're hitting a specific lease and somebody has decided that whatever is going in is correct. For the system of record, I think, again, Andre is exactly right. We typically have the PMS being the system of record for most of the stuff, but we also maintain our own databases in Microsoft Azure in the cloud so that if certain data gets lost, for example, some PMSs, when somebody moves out, they may no longer store the rent that was being paid before they moved out for a variety of reasons. We have that in our databases so that if there's ever a question on that, we can go back, we can do analysis with it, et cetera. There are certain pieces of data like that become very important for pricing analysis. But anyway, just wanted to add that because I thought it was useful.
No, it definitely is. And we have about 5 minutes before we wrap up. So I'm going to throw out one final question before I move into some final announcements before we conclude. We've talked a lot about like current technology that's available, right, through these integrations and what our different respective companies provide. And there's plenty of others out there. What do you guys see coming for the future that would be important for maybe an owner operator to take a peek at? Did I stump you?
I know I can start or not. Andre, I don't know if you want to start.
Go ahead, Warren. Go ahead, Warren. I'm happy to add because this is a open-ended question.
Okay. All right.
It's very open-ended. Yeah, sky's the limit, guys.
I think there are several areas to be paying attention to. Ephraim kind of talked a little bit about it with artificial intelligence already. Artificial, and we even have a comment that from Brooke about ordering at a Taco Bell and hated the AI. AI is in its early stages. There is no doubt that if I'm really have a 20-year time horizon, there are going to be a lot of things that are being done differently than today. We don't know yet what's going to be successful or not. We have 5 AI initiatives in process right now, trying to look at website connective interventions and how to do maybe better chatbots and how to do different pricing algorithms, rent increase algorithms. So I would say we don't even get what's going to be successful, but it's going to change. And we're just trying to kind of be on that leading edge of figuring out what to do. In pricing, enormous importance on legislation. You're seeing in New York City, we alluded this to early, New York City just launched a lawsuit against Extra Space for deceptive pricing practices. With pricing, revenue management, there are multiple ways to do this. Some risk class action lawsuits, some don't. So it's extraordinarily important to understand the details of what the systems are trying to do. You may not need to understand all the algorithms, but you do want to understand, are you using any data that's privately held by other companies in your methods? Because if you are, I may not want to use your product. I don't want you to make my data available. So there's all sorts of issues about, on the legislative side, trying to make sure that you are not falling into traps that you shouldn't be in. So just kind of hit some of those highlights.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot to that too. I mean, especially with AI and everything like that. One of the things that I always say, I mean, even what's happening up in New York, it's one of those things where I should probably know the number, but I think it's the majority of renters, if you guys know, chime in, the majority of renters are still first-time renters, right? So I think there is a focus now more than ever that we as operators and us as technology vendors in the industry, we have to focus on the customer experience. We have to make sure the customer experience is as easy as possible and what actually brings value to the customer. You know what I mean? That's what we also, it's monitoring their units, right? Making sure that their stuff is safe, that customer experience, I don't think a couple of years ago, 10 years ago, was as important. But now with how competitive the market's getting, yes, the AI is important. Yes, all this, but it's just making sure that with AI and everything that we're bringing in, it is still customer service and customer tenant experience focused, and driving value not only to tenants but also the owners as well.
Yeah. And if I can, I just because what you said about a lot of customers are still first-time renters, extraordinarily important in terms of this industry's position, the way you have to think about it, the way you have to think about your customers. If I told you you could fly from New York to Los Angeles for $22, you would know that price is ridiculously low, right? You would be jumping on it, okay? If I told you in New York you could rent a 10 by 10 for $46, you don't have any frame of reference for knowing, is that a high price, a low price? Okay, great. But if you find out that 2 months later, it's now going to be 127 and then it's going to be 260, you're pretty surprised because you don't have the same frame of reference for self-storage that you have for airline experience. And this is true in a lot of different ways, which just means you have to be thinking about your customers differently and what you need to be doing differently than in I don't want to say a more established industry, but an industry where people have a stronger frame of reference.
And just I just add something very briefly to that. I can put on my futurist hat and make predictions of what's right around the corner, but let's take a step back. Storage traditionally has lagged mainstream technology, right? And so I think if we look at the things that mainstream technology is doing today and kind of extrapolate that into self-storage. I mean, I've got a little Google Home guy here that's constantly listening, and then magically it's probably going to bring up a Veritech advertisement on my phone, when I leave the office, right? We have this like Big Brother's watching, but if you extrapolate that, I mean, you look, Uber, when I land flying from Austin to LAX, Uber's like, hey, need a ride? It knows I'm at the airport. It's tracking my GPS. It's doing these things. Somebody happens to be driving by Acme Storage, and then, it's predicted that they need storage. Hey, great special 3 months free coming now because we pin that person as being somebody that wouldn't move in and be, a customer lifetime value of $10,000 to us over the next 10 years. I think just us catching up to what the industry is doing and then hopefully getting on par is going to make self-storage a lot more valuable for our owners and increase NOI across the board.
I couldn't agree more with everything everyone said. And I think this could have been a 2-hour discussion. I mean, we have so much we can still continue to discuss because we're all tech nerds over here and we like to talk this, and we hope that our audience does as well. Audience, thank you so much for sticking with us. If you could stick with us for just a few more seconds here, just a couple quick announcements. So we are heading into the self-storage trade show season. Our entire theme for next month at the Storage Group is called the educational issue for our newsletter and our webinar and things that we're doing from our content perspective. So the next big show is the National SSA show in San Antonio. And I know our team will be there. I'm pretty sure everybody on this call will be there. Go ahead and give a quick shout out to your teams and where you will be at SSA. So if owners and operators that are on this call are attending, they can find you there live. Warren, I'll start with you.
Great, thank you. We will not have an exhibit booth, but we will have several of our staff at the SSA, so definitely reach out to me. It's veritechsolutions.com is our website. Send us a note. We'd definitely be happy to meet with you. I am giving a presentation on pricing at a session at the ISS show in April in Las Vegas. So obviously, if anyone's going to be there, please, again, very happy to reach out to me and we can schedule some time. But I think the session will touch on a lot of industry best practices, so should be exciting.
Awesome. Ephraim.
Awesome. Yeah. So Storage Defender, we're glad that this show, the national show, is coming to Texas. We don't got to fly to it. Just a short drive away from us. We're going to be at booth 843. Super excited for the show. And make sure you look out for the team in the red jackets. Would love to show you guys how we can make you guys more money.
Awesome. Andre.
Quickstore's typically at every show. We will be in San Antonio. I unfortunately don't have the booth number off the top of my head, but you can't miss the Quickstore Baby Blue. We'll have a bunch of our team there, and we'll also be at the ISS amongst some of the other regional and state shows. And Ephraim, although majority of our team is in Los Angeles, California, where I am now, I am from Austin, so I'm very happy to be able to drive to a show and not actually, hop on a plane to get there.
That's awesome. The Storage Group will be there as well. I believe we're at booth 920. My staff is going to pardon me if I said that wrong. I think we're at booth 920. We also have a roundtable session. So if you partake in the roundtables, please stop by and see our team at the roundtable. We love to educate. That's why we do things like this. We will also be at ISS. So speakers, again, thank you all guys so much for being here with us today and taking time out of your day. This is all volunteer on their side to help continue to educate the industry. I'm going to release all of you and I'm going to stay on for just one final second. Bye, guys. It was so good to have you here with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then just some quick save the dates on our end from the Storage Group, and I'll put these up so because they have QR codes, you can scan them. I'm sorry, my broke roommate here, my dog, is deciding he wants to chime in with me now. He's been very quiet. But if you just stick around for a few more seconds before we end this live webinar, I'm going to put these up on screen for you all to scan the QR code. And again, we put stuff on social media in our newsletter. You'll be able to sign up for these upcoming events that we have coming to you. Thank you all so much for joining us today. I hope you got a good bit out of this. If there's ever a topic out there that you're curious about, please send us a note. We'd be happy to take a look at that and see if we could do a webinar for you specific to that topic so we can help continue to educate you. Thanks again, everyone, for joining us today. I hope you have a great rest of your afternoon.